was his in the past, and we are discussing the future of our country. I'm very glad, and I hope to share ideas and to teach and learn from these our colleagues. But of course, I must assert it that the people of Uganda, especially the young generation, the new generation that I largely represent, is committed to changing their country and to taking back the right to determine their destiny. I am ready and committed to lead the charge to change Uganda, so help us the Almighty God.
With your introduction and why Uganda should believe in your cause.
Thank you, dear moderators. I take this opportunity again to thank all Ugandan citizens who are sitting in this room and those who are watching us. I'm called musician into I want the flag for Alliance for National Transformation, whose mantra is value is driven leadership. We entered this race very well knowing the state of our country. For 63 years, we've been in a vicious cycle. John Museveni being the 9th president, regime after regime, promises are made, promises are never fulfilled. And we reach a point where we believe that there must be something up there that causes leaders to get up there in spite of the promises that they do make. What makes them drunk to a point where they lose direction, they don't fulfill promises, they trample on citizens, and unfortunately at this point in time, we have not even had the experience where one leader hands over power to another. That's sad. Some of us had hoped that we'd see the breaking out of that vicious cycle. Where we're heading, we are not so sure whether that will be or not. We'll keep on struggling. We hope that we'll see that at some point. We've been moving around the country now for about 2 months. The state of our people is quite frightening. Joblessness, the levels of joblessness of the youth, the depth of poverty that you read on the faces of the people, and in what they express. The lack of drugs in hospitals, government hospitals, and very well knowing that there are those who can't afford to go to private hospitals, which means they can't afford the bills, which means that most people just go home to die. That's been going on for quite a while. In the area of joblessness, even the few jobs which are viable, not only at the national level, but even at the local government level, because they have so far gone through 74 districts. And I made it a point to ask everywhere we go whether there are transparent systems of young people getting jobs. And the response has been uniform throughout. I've not been to any district where I've got a response that you can go and interview, and when you succeed, you are the best that you can get a job, unless you know someone, unless you get bribe. That's quite frightening, that government jobs can be sold. So the people out there who still believe that General Museveni should continue, I've been urging them on the campaign trail. But considering that state of affairs and the frightening levels of corruption in this country, we lose 10 trillion. Uganda shillings. That's a
Introducing Airtel Vote. Stay in control of the game while enjoying crystal clear HD calls with friends and loved ones. For Android phone,
but they should be considered. General Museveni should just simply be retired peacefully on 15th of January and I've been urging them to look amongst the 7 of us and select one who can lead this country from the vicious circle in which it is, the mess at which we are, also considering the levels of the frightening levels of debt, that they look for a capable person, and I always project myself.
All right.
Because of
Thank you so much, Mugisha Montu. 5 candidates. We do also have 5 themes for the presidential debate. Please be reminded we are streaming across our social media platforms on Facebook as well as X, as well as TikTok. So share the link with the rest of Uganda. Equally on our website, www.ntv.co.ug, we are having the presidential debate live on NTV as well as Spark TV. As we start off, theme number 1, youth unemployment and the jobs, or the economic reset. I'm going to start with candidate Frank Mulira. Just to shape the narrative, candidate, Uganda has a very young population, as according to the UBO statistics from the population census having been conducted in 2024, more than 73% of citizens being under the age of 30, including about 14 million people aged between 15 and 30, marking about 31%. And then we look at the latest labor data also showing us that only about 37% of these young people are actually employed and working. About 16% of them are choosing or are able to stay in school, and roughly 40 to 42% are neither in employment. We cannot trust them in education, neither can we pin them in training. Youth unemployment is standing currently at 16.3% compared to the 11.7%. Overall, when we look to the female perspective, there the youth unemployment is also closely higher at 20%. The figures do go on, but each year about 700,000 people do enter the labor market, but only about 34% of that figure is actually absorbed in jobs. Candidate Frank Mulira, given these realities, what concrete measures beyond the national employment strategy, beyond the national development plan 4 that we're currently running as a country, will you implement in your first 3 years? 1, to raise job absorption well above 34%. 2, cut the youth need rate by at least 10%. And then 3, to ensure that the additional jobs being created are decent, they're formal, and are creating opportunities rather than incurring a lot of pressure on the informal sector.
Yeah, thank you so much. First of all, surely poverty is everywhere, but our case as Uganda is so worrying. Just as I said, we can speak a lot, but the biggest problem of Uganda is Mr. Museveni and the system of governance. Those are the 2 biggest problems, bringing about youth unemployment, growing at the fastest rate, and people losing hope in their country and in the future. As the Revolutionary People's Party, under the new federal arrangement, remember, after 15th January next year, in the next 2 weeks, Uganda will be announced as the new Federal Democratic Republic, governed under the 16 federal states, taking charge of their wealth. The Revolutionary People's Party is going to take the jobs closer to the people, where they stay. Gone are the days when everyone has to come to Kampala looking for jobs. People going to kneel before Mr. Museveni to get survival, including ministers. Public servants, you have to meet Mr. Museveni in order to survive, in order for your child to be given a bursary. The federal arrangement is going to take back the jobs in the areas, the 16 proposed federal states making up Uganda. First of all, we are going to introduce the Federal Economic Empowerment Program. The Federal Economic Empowerment Program is going to replace these failed parish development models, which are just enriching NRM cadres and RBCs, swindling taxpayers' money, the Operation Welfare Creations, just helping soldiers to build more mansions and build their kids. they are all going to be scrapped, and the federal empowerment, economic empowerment program is going to look at the Ugandans in Sebei are going to be placed in the cement factories, where you even have truck drivers who are Chinese in Kasarem, in Kapchora.
Mr. Leader, can you name one country that's operating a federal system?
UAE, German.
Which ones of those are over just under 63 years?
God said about UAE and its background. There was a time when Uganda was far ahead of UAE. You remember that one time Idi Amin Dada gave food aid to UAE when the current president was the father of the current Sheikh Al Maktoum. He gave UAE food aid, plus the little soil UAE has. It was taken from here and mixed with the sand. UAE, every tree in UAE and grass has to be irrigated in order to live for a day.
I worry.
But it is the capital city of the world right now. Uganda would be so far better if we had gone federal.
I worry you might not know that much about federalism, because the best example,
according to you,
the United States of America, which is operating on a federal system. From the federal system, you go down to the state system, then from the state system, you go down to municipals. So I worry that you want to implement something that you're not very savvy with.
That is according to you.
No, this is the biggest economy in the world. So if you're to give an example, at least let's go with one that has...
I give the example of UAE because it's the country I know most. The king of Dubai is my good friend Sheikh Al Maktoum, and the president of UAE, Sheikh Nayan. So it is a live example. My second home is in UAE. I've admired a lot from UAE under their arrangement, whereby you don't need to go to Sharjah when you are in Abu Dhabi to get a service. Everything is in a is well catered for in a particular federal state or province. Provinces are competing. When Abu Dhabi builds a big skyscraper, Dubai will bring Burj Khalifa. When Al Alain does this, in the end, the country ends up developing. In Nigeria, you don't need to go to, if you are in Lagos, you are contented. You don't need to go to Abuja. You don't need to go to Kumasi. So,
Kumasi is in Ghana. You have run out of time. Thank you, Mr. Bulira. As you can imagine, it is going to be a very heated conversation. And if I do jump in, my credentials might permit me to do that. On to the next candidate. Let's look at Mr. Joseph Mabidizi. Quick question, Mr. Mabidizi. Are you familiar with the Malabo Declaration? Could you kindly switch on your mic? Are you familiar with the Malabo Declaration?
So many declarations has been done.
That is a yes or no question.
So which one do you mean exactly?
Malabo Declaration, Africa Union. Are you familiar with the Abuja Declaration?
Which one in particular? Because several of them, there are several which has been done.
I wouldn't want to be
talking about the climate one. Are you talking about which one are you talking about?
Okay, let's talk about agriculture. A declaration was made where 10% of revenues going through this fiscal plan when it comes to spending of any nation that is privy to the African Union spends 10% of their revenue on agriculture. As you can imagine, Uganda does not do that. That being said, what would you do in your first few months as president of Uganda to fix that?
We have a very big plan about agriculture infrastructure, where we want to encourage much of small-scale industry, where people can use simple machines in agriculture.
Like hoes?
when I talk about simple machines, I know even a whole falls under that, but there are other machines which are not big tractors, those ones which are operated just with small engines, those ones which are operated manually, just push them. So there are so many. So I'm not talking about only home.
I'm very confused. Now we talked about combine harvest. I'm very confused. Going back to plowing with oxen, which one is it? Give me something concrete.
They are tractors, but now I'm talking about the simple machines which use these simple engines, which are affordable. They don't consume a lot of fuel, and they are being used in Malaysia. So you can use Malaysia, because for me that's where I saw them. So that's what I'm talking about, that once we trade that and bring it into our nation, we will have helped a lot in agriculture.
But you're addressing something different, because what this declaration say is to have 10% of your GDP.
I understand your question. Give me time to answer.
Please go.
If you want me to answer your way, then it's something else.
Please proceed.
I have my way, and I can pass either way answer. So you want me to give the answer you have? I have my own answer. So, I told the person who contacted me that let me hope you are taking me into a debate, not something like questioning you. Then you answer this, someone asks another question to take you off. So, what I was saying, there is a need to get that into that modernization agriculture, where we need to import simple machines to empower agriculture sector from the regions. And once you've empowered all the regions, having shared the power, responsibility, where the regions, they are also responsible for collecting taxes, and after collection of taxes, they only give 40% to the central government. Then 60% remains in the region. So the regional governments, they are responsible to institute and put into practice what fits their region according to agriculture. So it will be the responsibility of the regions sitting and deciding. Even what the declaration aimed at may be less. Each region will decide according to the need of that region. That's what we call shared power. It's not about only one person dictating that things should move in this direction or the other direction. That will be the responsibility of the regional governments.
Makes sense. Thank you.
All right, as we dig on, be reminded that our first theme of the night is youth unemployment and economic reset. This is where we'd like to turn to Honorable Robert Kyagulanyi Ssentamu, one who has quite a large youth following. These are young boys and girls who need technical skills that are primarily scarce in our country right now. We look to training, we look to education, vocational education, and we also look to tertiary education that is still by and large weak. And also the digital economy is leaving so many people behind. From what you have seen in the many days you have been all over this country, if you were to become president, what immediate reforms will you use to drive an overhaul in Tibet, and then also build real digital skills and ensure that the young person you have been meeting on this campaign trail is actually not locked out of the future?
Thank you very much. And I'm glad you mentioned that indeed we've been traveling all over the country. For me, this is more realistic than idealistic. These are not just statistics, these are realities. These are people who've been there, and in every urban town we've seen hundreds of young people that show up, that are desperate, they're strong, they're talented, they want to work, but these are young people that have been failed by a system. It should be noted that Uganda is ranked the most entrepreneurial country in Africa. However, the young people have been failed because 70% of the small businesses that are started do not live to complete 1 full year. They are failed because of high taxes, they are failed because of the cost of money, high interest rates, they are failed because of high electricity rates, they are failed because of high transportation. This comes because of the broken down transport infrastructure. As a national unity platform in the new Uganda, we have a plan of establishing 10 million jobs. On here, we're going to do this by leveraging the tourism sector. As you know, Uganda is immensely gifted. We're going to leverage the manufacturing sector, and most importantly, the creative industry. Now, having come from the creative industry, I know the potential of the creative industry. Uganda is equally as talented as Nigeria, or even more talented. But looking at the Nigeria's creative industry, it is almost outcompeting the oil industry. In fact, they call it a new oil because it is largely seen as even more engaging and more incorporating of young people, of the ordinary citizen, than the oil sector. Now, our plan is as follows. First, we want to empower and support the small, medium enterprises and the cottage industries. Now, for the benefit of our voters out there, cottage industries are the small scale industries, mainly in homesteads that are majoring in production. These, we must understand, looking at the growing economies of the world, these have been the unsung heroes of these growing economies. China, India. These examples, we think it can be a benefit in Uganda. I'm looking at areas, especially these that are near borders, like Arua, like Chisoro, like Kabale. If they are supported, they could boost even production, and they could even boost export by looking at production of textiles.
When you say supported, what does that mean?
Supported means cutting down, reducing the cost of doing business, reducing the power costs, reducing the cost of money, reducing the interest rates, investing in transport infrastructure. This would make it easier for them, and it would boost them. Also, it's important to mention that in this line, we want to boost production. In our manifesto, we presented our school feeding program, where the government is going to be feeding children at school. Now, the people that are going to be supplying these foodstuffs are going to be the ordinary citizens. And in the new Uganda, the government will work with the Parent Teachers Association, the PTA, to ensure that they identify not only the most vulnerable, but also the most trusted and competent suppliers, the eggs, the wheat, the rice, the flour, to feed the children. This way, we're going to be able to support even the small producers, the women, and the ordinary people out there. We believe that this is not only going to boost education, but it's going to help in youth unemployment. We also intend to modernize our skills development.
Your time is spent, but I'm going to allow you a minute. You have made recognition of manufacturing and tourism. These are high level in terms of strategic for any presidential candidate. Leaders have been describing it as Uganda's economic growth. However, there's one structural problem that still hinders both sectors right now, and that is unreliable power supply and high electricity costs. What's your solution?
Well, the high electricity costs can be renegotiated. As government, we can go as far as renegotiating with Buchagari to ensure that the power comes down, because that is what is going to help the productivity. There's one thing, if you allow me also to talk about, that's the exploitation. The current government prides in youth employment, where mainly the industries that are owned by foreigners actually exploit the citizens to an extent that young Ugandans are paid as low as 3,500 shillings a day. Now, I was in Parliament in 2019 and we passed the minimum wage bill. Unfortunately, General Museveni refused to sign it. Now, we are going to reintroduce it in a new Uganda and I will sign it.
Thank you for that. Let's move on to candidate Nandala Mafabi. I've been going through your manifesto, which is quite fascinating. It's something that you mentioned, cooperative-led agro-industrialization. You're familiar with that. And here you do target tea fertilizers at 30%. Explain to me how this sizzles into working on the youth unemployment problem in the country.
Thank you so much. First of all, Uganda is an agricultural country, so it's an agrarian economy. And in the youth we have currently, if I give you an example, most of them are living in schools, or they have moved out of school, but they don't have land. They cannot be able to go on the land. But agriculture employs both 80% of the Ugandans. Now, as a government, which should be serious government, should ensure that Ugandan citizens are employed. We're looking at skilling the youth, and you skill them in what you have. For example, you skill them in agriculture, you skill them in construction, you skill them even in ICT. Now, if you skill them in agriculture, that means you are trying to modernize agriculture. And if you're going to modernize agriculture, then this youth will be employed in industry. I can tell you agriculture can go ahead to employ the biggest number of people. What do you do with it? You produce what we call agro-processing. And if you go for agro-processing, those are industries and related industries. And when you bring agro-processing, the youth who have studied or who have not even skilled ones, that you can skill them, will go and work in agro-processing. And that's pretty looks. And I can assure you the biggest country now where we can relate jobs currently is in agro-processing, in the agriculture. And Uganda has an advantage, as I said, God has given us the best way. You can do anything. Now, for example, here we used to have 4 cash crops, and the cash crop meant where we used to get cash. That was coffee, cotton, tea, and tobacco. And the cotton we are raising, it is called, the cotton is called white gold. Now, what has we talked about tea? The tea is called magnetic money. Now, the tea, you see, right now you speak, the soils which have been growing tea have been taken to do other things. But why we're talking about fertilizers, you need to push that land to go more and more tea. And currently, even the activity by growing, there's a lot of activity that are paid farmers. And the farmers are getting discouraged. A good government should not make farmers get discouraged. What should be there should be a mechanism whereby if there's overproduction, you have the stores, that is called silos. You must be the one, be the catalyst leading the marketing processes. You must be the one even trying to go into better industries, whereby you can create an industry on all over. I'll give an example. I did it this year. Total Uganda, which was accepted an international policy, they came with a policy of saying younger dealers. What they did, they would give a young man or young lady petrol station land, but they would give him fuel to run that petrol station. They would be deducting the margins, but they will give us some money. Give him a period of about 3 years, they say he must exit, so that they bring another new dealer. And the purpose was to train them how to manage business. Many of them got out and updated their own petrol station, and they're up there. If government of Uganda did the same to do education like that, whereby we pattern, even with private sector. Another example I can give you in the pattern election. If a company employs disabled people, it gets tax deductions from all this tax. If a company, if government of Uganda wants the youth to be employed, they will be employed. How? You once say, look, employ this youth in agriculture, you will have the following. 1, tax exemption, or reduced tax. 2, you will be given some facilities, because the youth will be working and earning your living. The tax deduction and what you're giving is putting the young man or young lady to be employed. I can tell you, agriculture is one of the places we should invest more money, whereby we can have our youth employed. You talked about.
I know you're running out of time. I just want to touch on this, right? Having worked for the World Bank, Rwanda does a very good job in Nyungwe with the tea processing. How would you use that example to address that? I just want you to help us on that. That's actually a positive, because I'm listening to a lot of sense here. Rwanda is growing a lot of tea in their Nyungwe plantations, and you have a lot of case studies to make the tea plantations better.
Are you aware the Rwanda copied our proposal, which was made by Uganda?
This is why
I'm trying to say that what Uganda is very good at writing proposals, but not good at implementing them. I am trying to tell you that this what I'm raising can be done. Tea can generate money, tea can generate jobs. Because I'm saying that when we, first of all, the tea farmers will get money, the processors will get money, the transporters will get money. What I'm trying to say that if our target is to invest in tea, which we are putting in the manifesto, those tea growing areas will be used. We have talked about subsidizing fertilizers, putting, you see, factories, when you're trying to build a factory, you need. Because a person going to the bank to borrow money is more expensive. But the government can put a factory and hand it over. I tell these people, after the picture time, you will have paid the factory for and go away. Currently in our country, I will give an example. There's a gentleman who was involved in the tea industry. What he did, he even borrowed money from the money lender. Well, you know Uganda now is being led by money lenders. What happened? The cost became high. She took my minutes. Listen to me. So, when he could not pay, of course, there was a lot of loss. Our country had been done in such a way that cost of capital is too high. And because even the reason why cost of capital is high is because of government. The biggest borrower is government. So it clouds private credit. And so when someone goes to the commercial bank to borrow, they will say, no money, or they give you at an expense, maybe there's more conditions. Now what I'm trying to say, in this sector, you've got to wait for me to come to do that. I will tell you that through the deliberate effort to put industries, to put processes, so that credit, which should have been somebody going there, will be given by government beyond needing it, so that we create jobs in that sector. Fertilizers will be given on services. And I can assure you the tea sector is the best now. Because initially we had 4 of them, 4 ranking in. Tea can even overtake coffee. But of course coffee is still high. In the current situation now, it is coffee followed by tea. Now we're getting a lot of money from tea, but also the marketing process are being driven wrongly. Government should lead in this process. I can assure you, I believe tea will create jobs and will make our youth employed.
All right, thank you so much. State matters agriculture, our national anthem does pride in our agriculture backbone, good climate and fertile soils. Gregory Mugisha Mutu. Many households are remaining in the subsistence economy right now as we speak, mostly in subsistence agriculture. You do have the standing current government prioritizing agro-industrialization, manufacturing with the incumbent, ensuring that there's a spread out of business and investment parks across the country. But there's also the element of tourism, construction, trade that are low-hanging fruits. Oil and gas have been promised that next year it should be bearing us some fruits. There's also works and transport. All these to acknowledge that there's a high failure rate of youth-owned businesses without systematic support. in those particular sectors. How do you intend to actually ensure that there's policies, that there's public investment, that there's procurement that is geared towards ensuring that the young people's uptake into these sectors is one that will help them leapfrog from the statistics we know of?
The measure of development in a country must be reflected in the development of the people first and foremost. In Uganda, where 70% of the population is in agriculture, fisheries, crop as well as dairy.
Things which is absolutely sad right now, that there was a total breakdown of extension services, and also credit is very expensive. Other than PDM, which is touted all over the place, which is only 1 million, it cannot help farmers who want to invest, one, raising money for quality seeds, buying fertilizer in areas where you find that the soils have got depleted.
Raising money for
tractors or ox plows, that requires capital. And most of these peasants don't have access to capital. And our cooperative unions were literally broken down. It is very amazing that there is actually one fund. It is small, it's not big. The agricultural credit facility, which is given by Bank of Uganda through commercial banks. In the 74 districts where I've gone, I have asked in about 8. It's only in one district of Moya where only 2 people raised their hands who were aware of such existence of such a fund. Now you can imagine, this is an agricultural country. There is a regime which touts PDM, which is on 1 million. And yet the fund which could have helped those who were in agriculture could go in.
People are not aware of it at all. And it's at 12% per year. Farmers cannot survive on borrowing from commercial banks or borrowing from circles at 30%, 35% and above. Simply can't happen. And therefore we propose to increase agricultural credit and expand it and sensitize people, and also ensure that we either direct or work with the private sector to establish tractor hire services in areas where they still have large chunks of land. That is only Lango, Chachuri, just where you find peasants who still have subsistence farmers who still have about 10, 15, 20 acres. And the other areas where people are still about 1 acre, 2 acres, that's a totally different approach that will be used. And there also needs to be cheap credit in terms of low interest rate, long-term repayment period for agro-processing. Because agro-processing, once you establish industries successfully and expand them, they become a market for those who are in subsistence farming. And also in the area of tourism, low-hanging fruit. But Uganda is one of the countries in the region which doesn't advertise Uganda, market Uganda. I think the countries which aggressively market the countries is Tanzania, Kenya, and Rwanda. Uganda has entries about 1.2 million tourists who come in. Kenya and Tanzania has about 2.5. If Uganda was able to advertise itself, it could consider the beauty of this country and so many opportunities that there are in terms of tourists, and increase that rate from 1.2 to possibly about 5 million people. The employment and the levels of opportunity that there will be, those will be expanding the base in the country, those will invest into cottage industries, because that will also be a market for agriculture and those who are agro-processing. If you get like 4 million people starting in this country, great market for those, someone who is producing yogurt, someone who is growing carrots and cabbages, someone who is packing rice, someone who is all nature of things. Uganda has not, I think they are sleeping on the job when it comes to tourism in that regard, this regime. It will be our intention to ensure that we fully exploit the area of tourism, because it's not called the yellow-handed fruit for nothing. Because investment doesn't take a long time. Marketing itself, once you have skilled advertising, Uganda there are so many Ugandans who are skilled in marketing, we can increase the tourist entries significantly in a 5 years' time, and it will be a very big area for employment.
Okay. In your NNC manifesto 2026-2031, you are also very big about monitoring and evaluation of the manifesto you would have put out should you become president come 2026. What would be the indicators of success for the things that you have mentioned, particularly increasing the agriculture credit and also creating markets beyond our borders?
Pursue is the area of corruption. We consider it as public enemy number one. The loss through corruption of 2.5 billion, you can save about 70–80% of that. Reinvest it into the sectors which are needed: education, health, and also areas like I've already talked about, like in tourism. One, education, it may take a little bit of time to bear the results, but it's the highest form of wealth for any country that wants to develop. Because we are clearly aware that even countries which have nothing, not even one single mineral, when they invested in education, high quality education, and of course with good political management of those systems in such countries, some of them have developed. Example we keep giving is Japan. Now consider here, if you invest in good education, invest in having a healthy workforce, and also invest in agriculture, having food security, and also having citizens who are well fed. When you have those, plus the mineral potential which we have, and good political management, the sky is the limit for this country.
And the sky is the limit for your time. Thank you so much, Gregory Mugisha Muntu. We're going to take a short break. As we do so, please be reminded the hashtag that we are running with is NTV Presidential Debate 2025. And we are running on NTV as well as Spark TV, and we are streaming live across the social media platforms, mainly X as well as TikTok and Facebook, and our website. Now, there is a poll that is running. Which part of the debate is interesting you the most? There's finance and economic growth, there's health and education, there is also security and governance, infrastructure development. Now, just to extract a few comments that are coming in from our online audience, thanks NTV for preparations. Page 35 manifesto, 4.2 clean water for all, national unity platform shows interest of reducing the cost of 20 litres to 10 shillings. And there's a question there on the possibility in an economy where 50 shillings is no longer in circulation. There's also one that has commented here, WAPS on X says, what are the specific national laws, regulations, and doctrine that a government that has power can actually use to ensure that there's a security, particularly regarding the arrests, the detentions, and the use of force and the such that is happening. Basically what we have been seeing in the most recent days as far as security and stability is concerned. We also do have Waha on X when he says, when the economy is stable, security will have the funds for defense, education will be funded, infrastructures will be built, and the health will have enough drug supply, meaning the well-being of the citizens, boosting the growth of all sectors. At the end of the day, he believes that economy is the key for him. Thank you so much for your voices. Keep them coming. We take a short breather. We return shortly.
And thank you very much, dear distinguished moderators, honorable colleagues with whom I'm running for the noble responsibility of leading our nation, ladies and gentlemen present here, and those watching us from afar. I am humbled to be here contesting to lead our country, and it's great pleasure and honor to be representing the common people of our country. As a person who comes from the ghetto and rose to represent the nation at the highest level, I cannot take any further pride than that. But also, I am aware that we are in a nation that is at crossroads. We had independence 63 years ago, and 40 of those years have been covered by one man who has reduced our country to a failed state. Absolutely, it is clear to all and sundry that this nation, which is primarily young, has clearly made a decision, only that they have been stifled. I am aware that I will be taking over a nation where 1.5 babies are born every year, taking over a nation where almost half of the budget goes to servicing debts. I'm aware that I'm taking over. What we promise is a new Uganda which is going to reset. Our country has completely been messed, and it needs to start afresh. Every institution has been captured, and we intend to start again in a new Uganda where people are going to be servants, where citizens of Uganda should take over power to decide the destiny of their lives. As we stand right now, the people of Uganda don't have a vote, they don't have a voice, and they don't have power over their nation. The state has been captured completely, and we hope to liberate not just the citizens, but also those that are leading the country. On the downside, I had really hoped to meet General Museveni here, so I could publicly face him and hear what more lies he has to tell us after 40 years. To hear from him straight the gains he's protecting. Is he protecting the potholes? Is he protecting the rotten hospitals? Is he protecting the broken down schools, the broken down infrastructure? Is he protecting his power and right to torture citizens? I have always wanted to hear that, not privately, but publicly from General Museveni. Anyway, it's all right that he's not here because he's in the past and we are discussing the future of our country. So I'm very glad and I hope to share ideas and to teach and learn from these our colleagues. But of course, I must assert it that the people of Uganda, especially the young generation, the new generation that I largely represent, is committed to changing their country and to taking back the right to determine their destiny. I am ready and committed to lead the charge to change Uganda, so help us the Almighty God. Thank you very much. And I'm glad you mentioned that indeed we've been traveling all over the country. For me, this is more realistic than idealistic. These are not just statistics, these are realities. These are people who've been there, and in every urban town we've seen hundreds of young people that show up, that are desperate, they're strong, they're talented, they want to work, but these are young people that have been failed by a system. It should be noted that Uganda is ranked the most entrepreneurial country in Africa. However, the young people have been failed because 70% of the small businesses that are started do not live to complete one full year. They are failed because of high taxes, they are failed because of the cost of money, high interest rates, they are failed because of high electricity rates, they are failed because of high transportation. This comes because of the broken down transport infrastructure. As a national unity platform in the new Uganda, we have a plan of establishing 10 million jobs. And here we're going to do this by leveraging the tourism sector. As you know, Uganda is immensely gifted. We're going to leverage the manufacturing sector, and most importantly, the creative industry. Now, having come from the creative industry, I know the potential of the creative industry. Uganda is equally as talented as Nigeria, or even more talented. But looking at the Nigeria's creative industry, it is almost outcompeting the oil industry. In fact, they call it a new oil because it is largely seen as even more engaging and more incorporating of young people, of the ordinary citizen, than the oil sector. Now, our plan is as follows. First, we want to empower and support the small, medium enterprises and the cottage industries. Now, for the benefit of our voters out there, cottage industries are the small scale industries, mainly in homesteads, that are majoring in production. These, we must understand, looking at the growing economies of the world, these have been the unsung heroes of these growing economies. China, India, Brazil, name it. So, looking at these examples, we think it can be a benefit in Uganda. I'm looking at areas, especially these that are near borders, like Arua, like Chisoro, like Kabale. If they are supported, they could boost even production, and they could even boost export. Looking at production of textiles.
When you say supported, what does that mean?
Supported means cutting down, reducing the cost of doing business, reducing the power costs, reducing the cost of money, reducing the interest rates, investing in transport infrastructure. This would make it easier for them, and it would boost them. Also, it's important to mention that in this line, we want to boost production. In our manifesto, we presented our school feeding program, where the government is going to be feeding children at school. Now, the people that are going to be supplying these foodstuffs are going to be the ordinary citizens. And in the new Uganda, the government will work with the Parent Teachers Association, the PTA, to ensure that they identify not only the most vulnerable, but also the most trusted and competent suppliers, the eggs, the wheat, the rice, the flour, to feed the children. This way, we're going to be able to support even the small producers, the women, and the ordinary people out there. We believe that this is not only going to boost education, but it's going to help in youth unemployment. We also intend to modernize our skills development.
Your time is spent, but I'm going to allow you a minute. You have made recognition of manufacturing and tourism. These are high level in terms of strategic for any presidential candidate. Leaders have been describing it as Uganda's economic growth. However, there's one structural problem that still hinders both sectors right now, and that is unreliable power supply and high electricity costs. What's your solution?
Well, the high electricity costs can be renegotiated. As government, we can go as far as renegotiating with Bujagali to ensure that the power comes down, because that is what is going to help the productivity. There's one thing, if you will allow me also to talk about, that's the exploitation. The current government prides in youth employment, where mainly the industries that are owned by foreigners actually exploit the citizens to an extent that young Ugandans are paid as low as 3,500 shillings a day. Now, I was in Parliament in 2019 and we passed the minimum wage bill. Unfortunately, General Museveni refused to sign it. Now, we are going to reintroduce it in a new Uganda, and I will sign it.
Thank you for that. Let's move on to candidate Nandala Mafabi. I've been going through your manifesto, which is quite fascinating. There's something that you mentioned, cooperative-led agro-industrialization. You're familiar with that. And here you do target tea fertilizers at 30%. Explain to me how this sizzles into working on the youth unemployment problem in the country.
First of all, Uganda is an agricultural country, so it's a growing economy. And the youth we have currently, if I give you an example, most of them are living in schools, or they have been dropped out of school, but they don't have land. They cannot be able to go on the land. But in agriculture employs about 80% of the Ugandans. Now, as a government, which should be serious government, should ensure that Ugandan citizens are employed. We are looking at skilling the youth, and you skill them in what you have. For example, you skill them in agriculture, you skill them in construction, you skill them even in ICT. Now, if you skill them in agriculture, that means you are trying to modernize agriculture. And if you're going to modernize agriculture, then this youth will be employed in those cities. I can tell you agriculture can go ahead to employ the biggest number of people. What do you so do there? You produce what we call agro-processing. And if you go for agro-processing, those are industries and related industries. And when you bring agro-processing, the youth who have studied or who have not even unskilled ones, that you can skill them, will go and work in agro-processing. And that's pretty looks. And I can assure you the biggest group now where we can collect jobs currently is in agro-processing, in the agriculture.
Thank you very much, dear distinguished moderators, honorable colleagues with whom I'm running for the noble responsibility of leading our nation, ladies and gentlemen present here, and those watching us from afar. I am humbled to be here contesting to lead our country, and it's great pleasure and honor to be representing the common people of our country. As a person who comes from the ghetto and rose to represent the nation at the highest level, I cannot take any further pride than that. But also, I am aware that we are in a nation that is at crossroads. We had independence 63 years ago, and 40 of those years have been covered by one man who has reduced our country to a failed state. Absolutely, it is clear to all and sundry that this nation, which is primarily young, has clearly made a decision, only that they have been stifled. I am aware that I will be taking over a nation where 1.5 babies are born every year, taking over a nation where almost half of the budget goes to servicing debts. I'm aware that I'm taking over. What we promise is a new Uganda which is going to reset. Our country has completely been messed and it needs to start afresh. Every institution has been captured, and we intend to start again in a new Uganda where people are going to be servants, where citizens of Uganda should take over power to decide the destiny of their lives. As we stand right now, the people of Uganda don't have a vote, they don't have a voice, and they don't have power over their nation. Its state has been captured completely, and we hope to liberate not just the citizens, but also those that are leading the country. On the downside, I had really hoped to meet General Museveni here, so I could publicly face him and hear what more lies he has to tell us after 40 years. To hear from him straight the gains he's protecting. Is he protecting the potholes? Is he protecting the rotten hospitals? Is he protecting the broken down schools, the broken down infrastructure? Is he protecting his power and right to torture citizens? I have always wanted to hear that, not privately, but publicly from General Museveni. Anyway, it's all right that he's not here because he's in the past and we are discussing the future of our country. I'm very glad and I hope to share ideas and to teach and learn from these our colleagues. But of course, I must assert it that the people of Uganda, especially the young generation, the new generation that I largely represent, is committed to changing their country and to taking back the right to determine their destiny. I am ready and committed to lead the charge to change Uganda, so help us the Almighty God. Thank you very much. And I'm glad you mentioned that indeed we've been traveling all over the country. For me, this is more realistic than idealistic. these are not just statistics, these are realities. These are people who've been there, and in every urban town we've seen hundreds of young people that show up, that are desperate, they're strong, they're talented, they want to work, but these are young people that have been failed by a system. It should be noted that Uganda is ranked the most entrepreneurial country in Africa. However, the young people have been failed because 70% of the small businesses that are started do not live to complete one full year. They are failed because of high taxes, they are failed because of the cost of money, high interest rates, they are failed because of high electricity rates, they are failed because of high transportation. This comes because of the broken down transport infrastructure. As a national unity platform in the new Uganda, we have a plan of establishing 10 million jobs. And here we're going to do this by leveraging the tourism sector. As you know, Uganda is immensely gifted. We're going to leverage the manufacturing sector, and most importantly, the creative industry. Now, having come from the creative industry, I know the potential of the creative industry. Uganda is equally as talented as Nigeria, or even more talented. But looking at the Nigeria's creative industry, it is almost outcompeting the oil industry. In fact, they call it the new oil because it is largely seen as even more engaging and more incorporating of young people, of the ordinary citizen, than the oil sector. Now, our plan is as follows. First, we want
Debate 2026 does continue on. The rest for the State House of the Republic of Uganda, our 5 candidates having been resettled. Now we move on to the next critical theme of the night: security, governance, and justice. Arnold?
Thank you, Priscilla. One of the safest countries. I like that you brought in the UAE, arguably one of the safest countries in the world. Let's look at some statistics. The Uganda Bureau of Statistics, the data does show that 61% of Ugandans feel safe walking alone. Only 61%. This is from the Uganda Bureau of Statistics. With such data, what would you implement to make sure that Ugandans feel safe and ultimately attract foreign direct investment to the country? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Security is so important. It is so important that it can bring down a country. Insecurity can bring down a country within just 1 week. Under our new federal arrangement, we are going to put emphasis on building a more professional army. Professionalism in the security and military forces will curb the useless arrests. Having a decent and presentable army, plus police and intelligence, and at the end,
having a police and intelligence services that don't persecute or torture citizens, but rather help in building the country and bringing about sanity and following the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda. We are looking at strengthening community policing and improving the welfare plus training of our police force. In fact, the RPP is going to change the name of Uganda Police Force to Uganda Police Services. Police is supposed to be a service, like in other countries. It is not to be. We are going to demilitarize the police force. The police force, make it a police service, just as it is in Zambia and other countries. Police is going to be a service, not a force. Mr. Museveni did it deliberately to call it a force and keep it
calling it a force so that it can be used to cause brutality to innocent Ugandans. So we are going to change the name.
What if I told you your daily walk could be your most creative work time? With Whisper Flow, it can be. I learned that.
I'm sorry, I'm not using a lot of English. The English, too much English will come after swearing in. Right now, I know the people we are communicating with. The Wananchi, I want to speak and say that the Wananchi, I'm going to lead well, understand what I'm saying and what their country should be in the next 5 years. So I'm limiting the too much English. It won't help us. Right now we want to remove Mr. Museveni, bring back sanity in Uganda. The rest will come. So the Revolutionary People's Party is looking at having a force that will be focusing on internal security mostly. We shall not deploy our military forces out of Uganda on useless battles. Our sons and daughters have died in Somalia, South Sudan, in useless battles. Yet we are supposed to protect Ugandans. Just as you said, Mr. Segawal, people are not safe. Mr. Museveni went to the bush to bring about sanity and safety in this country. But people are not safe. There is no safety at all. Insecurity is added on the tortures, on the brutality, and the country totally just needs a change. The Revolutionary People's Party is also looking at motivating the police forces. At least the minimum salary a police officer should get will be $500, in addition to an allowance which will be given by the federal governments in the different regions. And we are going to recruit these police officers according to their regions. It doesn't, why does a DPC from Kiruhura, someone is from Kiruhura and is a DPC in Kapchora. Someone is from Bushenyi and is a DPC in Kuru. As if there are no Achoris who can be DPCs in those areas. So we are going to make sure under the new federal arrangement that we recruit police and position the police ranks according to the different regional setups. This is not sectarianism, but it is someone who would well work on, will well serve his people diligently when it's coming from that particular area. We shall have a force
All right, thank you so much. As we do continue to look to peace and security, candidate Gregory Mugisha-Muntu, you want to start with the forces, the Uganda People's Defense Forces. Currently, we see a distortion of order in security in our country. We do have, for example, the Uganda police right now that should be supporting the Electoral Commission in this election cycle. Not new to the eyes and ears of Ugandans. You have seen, and we have seen, deployment of the Uganda police forces, as well as the UPDF. We have also seen incidences where the UPDF has captured some people, taken them to the basement, a duty and responsibility that falls primarily under law and order, which should be the mandate of the Uganda police. So we see a breakdown in the system and the dissemination of peace and security in our country. If you were to be elected president, how would you reinstate the rightful order? What's the rightful order anyway to begin with?
You cannot effectively deal with the security problem unless you deal with the political question first, because there are many municipal services involved in unlawful activities because of the wrong orders they get, which are rooted in politics, because the top just wants to hang on to power. There are many officers and many in all those forces who love the country as much as we love it, who are well educated, who are well trained. So once there is a conducive political environment that is deliberately created, they can professionalize all those forces. That's one aspect of security, or the cause of insecurity. There's also another aspect that causes insecurity in this country. You can't have security unless you eliminate poverty. There are many places where we are going, through the villages. The people are staying with animals in their homes. Because if the animals are outside the homestead or outside the house, they stay with animals inside the house. They stay out because of the desperation of the people. They steal those animals. Now, when there's that nature of insecurity, even if you have 500,000 police officers on the beat, you are not going to control people who are desperate, who need something to eat. And therefore, the only way you can tackle that form of insecurity is to invest in the lifting of people from the levels of poverty where they are and ensure that they have got the means to cater for themselves and their families. 2, issues of justice. I hear those in the regime normally talk about peace, talk about stability. Peace is not the absence of conflict, it's the presence of justice. So justice and stability and security are more or less interrelated. Now, if you use the army, police services and intelligence services in a state where there is no justice, yes, you can clamp down on people, but to know that you are creating conditions for an ultimate situation where there will be an explosion. Basically, it means sitting on a time bomb. And we have seen countries which have effectively done that, clamp down on people because of the police, army, intelligence services maintaining control over the grievances of people. But normally it's an explosion. That's not the direction we should be moving towards. And therefore, under our government, one would want to deal first and foremost to ensure that there is a leadership that follows the law, the constitution and the law. Because that's also a form of security for those who are in power, and also those who may not be in power. But once there is that realization, those who are in power, that you must operate under the law, then it secures you in the sense that you don't even fear to leave power. Because when you leave power, when you have been operating under the law, you know that you are in the clear, you are not going to be harassed by anybody in terms of reprisals. So to us in Alliance for National Transformation, that's key. As they say, fish was from the head. You must have a head up there that is able to understand the dynamics of governance, the dynamics of security, the dynamics of creating an environment in which the best Ugandans who are in those forces, like in the army, there are many Ugandans out there who really would do the best that they can, but because of wrong political orders, they are exposed to doing wrong. It's unfortunate, it is sad, but I would like to believe that we're almost seeing the tail end of that kind of situation in our country.
Okay, they always say the fish rots from the head.
Yeah.
Let's borrow an example from our neighbors in Kenya. In 2010, they decided to change their constitution. One of the things that they were trying to remedy was the reduced presidential powers and also introducing stronger checks and balances towards governance and democracy. If we were to elect you as president on the 15th of January, how would you treat the current standing constitution as it is and the powers that it gives you as president on the day that you are inaugurated?
One of the things that we want to ensure that is processed and established in the constitution, the question of term limits. However, constitutions alone are not the issue, because we have had many countries where they have given the best constitutions, but they are always overridden. Why? Because of the culture. That's why we keep concentrating on ensuring that we get the men and women who not only talk about these issues of governance that we talk about. The Americans say talk is cheap. Any of us can say about the things that we say. Culture, to change culture, you must get people who are in leadership, who are acting out of conviction. If you don't get people who are operating out of conviction, I mean, who can't
to 17% of Ugandans pay bribes, and 88% of those see corruption as a concern in the country. What would you do to improve Uganda's corruption perception index, which is terrible?
Thank you very much. You see, before we find a solution, it's very important for us to analyze the problem. I think it all begins and ends with leadership, and Mildred mentioned it a few moments ago, that the fish rots right from the head. It all goes back to governance. It all goes back to the political will to fight freedom. As we stand right now, the Inspector General of Government, the IGG, Mulyagonja, mentioned some time ago that the big fish in corruption are always pursued and they hide behind the president. We are in a country where the head of state is the chief priest of corruption. You have seen scandal after scandal, and all the culprits of corruption are protected by the head of state. You saw Anita Among, the current Speaker of Parliament, sanctioned internationally because of corruption, by being protected by the head of state. Just a few days ago, a person that the court actually said had a case to answer on corruption, a minister called Lugorobi, he was cleared. Meanwhile, on the same day, other people were being arrested. There was allegations around Parliament, allegations of corruption, and the leader of opposition, who happens to be in presence today, wrote to the IGG to investigate those cases, and the IGG went mute. You have seen scandal after scandal in Parliament: 40 million bribe, 50 million bribe, 100 million bribe, all in exchange for the passing of classified money to be used by General Museveni, etc., etc. We have demonstrated our stand on corruption with the little power that we have, and we indeed continue to commit to Ugandans that as president, I will lead by example. When the president fights corruption, when the president observes zero tolerance to corruption, it goes down to the ministers, goes down to the permanent secretaries, and all the way down to all government officials. Our commitment will be zero tolerance to corruption. We've demonstrated that, and we will ensure that anybody that puts their hand in public money, the hand will not come out there, but the neck will go there as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Robert Kyagulanyi. Nandala Mafabi, if you were to become president, how will you change what Mugisha Muntu referred to as the culture? So there's the command culture that we're seeing right now. There's the oversight of security forces, and in the most recent days, as has been pretty much the last 3 electoral cycles, we have seen infringement on rights and freedoms and a fair playground for all the 8 candidates in the race. Right now, you were 8. You've been able to see what has happened to Mwami neighbor, Robert Kyagulanyi Ssentamu there, as he was traversing areas of Mukono, Kayunga, the tear gas, and some people, as we speak, are not here with us today simply because of that. If there were some people in your government that were not happy with how you were doing things, how would you deal with them?
First, to begin with, security is a cost. Currently, the budget of the current government, security is 9.7 trillion. 9.7 trillion. Instead of creating jobs or investing money in what? Security. And purposely to protect an individual. If you went now on the street, the security you'll get there is not of a gun. You'll get an insecurity of somebody wanting to find something to eat. And that's why we're saying, first and foremost, to deal with the insecurity, you look at 3 things: the poverty, the inequality, and injustice. If people have what to eat, they will not be on the street. There will be less cost in security to police them. If there are inequalities, people will want to have equality. And as a government, you should ensure there is quality. Even our constitution is very clear. A country must be developed equally, where those who are less developed are given a special consideration. And this also brings a problem. Injustice. You treat others differently, others don't obey the law, is very dangerous. So what will happen? A good government should follow the rule of the law. And the rule of the law means everybody is equal before the what? The law. Currently, let me go ahead a bit, then I come back to security. Currently, we are getting political judgments, not getting judgments following real justice. And the first place where people should be dealt with is judiciary. Now, in Uganda, the head of state is the same as the head of government. And you know, government is the one which consists of the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. Now, he's the head of state, he's the head of government, he interferes in all this. And the first thing to deal with is to reduce the powers of a president. So that's the first thing to deal with. And another thing which for us we're looking at is to restore even term limits and the age limit. Now, what will happen now? If you are not agreeing with somebody, you have no pass as head of state to be able to determine the case. There should be processes to determine. And the judiciary should be the one which works. The parliament should be the one which also works. And of course, the executive controls the police should be the one which works. I believe if police was a real police force, which is supposed to protect the citizens of Uganda, to maintain law and order, it wouldn't be the one to fight the citizens. And that's what we're saying. The police should be a professional police. That applies to the army. The army should be the army which is a professional army, not an army which comes to terrorize citizens.
Okay, allow me to interrupt. On that note, if you were to take over power, there's already a backlog in our prisons right now. 89% of citizens are aware of their right to seek justice, but only 17% are able to claim this justice and claim it in time, with only 15% knowing about the free legal aid in their sub-county levels. What are the top 3 justice sector reforms you would actually prioritize in order to deal with the backlog, especially for political prisoners, and disposal of targets, ensuring that there's fairness and justice is delivered in real time?
Yeah, that's what we're talking about, judiciary. You know, the judiciary does not function. If it is functioning, there are cases in those courts which are more than 20 years old, not decided. Now, those are both commercial cases and political cases. Now, political cases are basically for purpose of making a sitting government to infringe on the rights of individuals. So that's why the human rights organization, the Human Rights Commission, should be one of those enforcing this. The most important is to give capacity to Human Rights Commission, give it capacity, give it resources, and be able to investigate human rights abuses. Number 2, political prisoners, if you are in contestation of politics, it should also be decided in politics. There's no need to take your colleague in prison. If it is now like an election, allow him contest. Don't curtail anybody's rights. 3, access to justice. Of course, many people don't know their rights. And because even the access to justice sometimes is very expensive. Let me give an example. You go and get my mother deep in the village in the mountains, who will not know her rights. To go to court, you move maybe, say, 50 kilometers. What time will you reach court?
You have mentioned the cost of justice. What strategies would you deploy to reduce the cost of justice?
First of all, employ professional judges. You should not employ cadres. You should employ people who know their work. Number 2, you should ensure that there's public awareness. Where there is no one able to get justice, let's say getting a lawyer, the state should be able to provide remedies. and make sure the person is represented. 3, there must be civic education. The civic education must be on radios every day, telling people that should you have this, this is what you should follow. This is where you should go. But here already was only talking about elections and PDM, what is not useful for now. This is very important, and that is a deliberate effort. You must invest in it. And of course, there must be also audit of judgments. The Judicial Service Commission, which is the one in charge of it, should audit these judgments to confirm if the judge was right or not. Of course, when I meet a judge, I'm meaning giving the magistrate grade 1, grade 2, grade 3 going upside. So we will need that. Also, the other one is we employ people whom have not even investigated, audited. In Kenya, they did it well. Before somebody is appointed, the public talks about them. Some of these people we employ are criminals, and they are the ones dealing with this. Some of them are merchants. So these are the things we should deal with. The public should come out, be public hearing before somebody is employed in the judiciary.
Thank you for that. Mr. Mabirizi, there's an act in a certain country called the Pose Comitatus Act, and it basically prohibits the army from operating domestically. From your approach of regionalism, how would you fix the Ugandan army? As we've heard, reports now saying that they will be responsible for protecting the vote after it's been cast, which is domestic approach, usage. How would your regional approach address this?
Thank you so much, Mr. Moderator. First of all, I want to arrest your fears. I'm going to start from the other end, not from where you want me to start from. You've heard me talking about regional governments.
Make payments to supermarkets, restaurants, hospitals, fuel stations, bars, duka, saluni, Rolex Guy, and...
There was a man called Mayanja Nkanj. Mayanja Nkanj, he could raise out his 2 fingers. The 2 fingers representing, number 1, the government of peace, number 2, the 2 governments. And those 2 governments, we are talking about the regional governments. And when it comes to regional governments, we are the CP, we are the architecture, the champion of federal. So we are talking about federalism, the tangible one, which can work to solve all the problems of Uganda. So in a regional government, where I've already told you that there is share of power, so the recruitment of soldiers, the policemen and so forth, it depends on the population of the region or per region. Not only that, but in every region, because it is in the set of a federal government, in every region, they have got judiciary department. In that small government, if I'm in courts, call them small governments, they have a department which concerns with security. They have people who are responsible. They have ministers who can carry out different work in different departments. So with such a setting, you would have waved away or dealt away with only one man having all power on everything. So when you do that, the regional governments cater for their security because they are independent in their setting. These are federal governments. So they cater for their security, though they do work with the central government because it's a shared responsibility. It's a shared way of handling and working or promoting security in a nation. So once you have instituted regional governments, you will not have any problem with security. And when we talk about security, security starts with the citizens, getting to know who is my neighbor. So once the setting is in regional government, whoever enters that region, at least people get to know each one has got to know his neighbor. Once there is any visitor who comes, so they get to know that so and so has come in. So with that, and having put judicial courts in all those regions, secured jobs for people, people have shared the power and responsibility, so you will not face any problem which concerns security. So we don't need to borrow any other kind of security abroad or looking at a certain government. We can just do our own here. Once we get to know that what can solve all the problems of Uganda is federalism. Without that, leaving power in only one man's hand, nothing can change.
Thank you for that, Candidate Mabirizi. At this point, Priscilla.
Well, at this point, you are reminded that we'll be closing this debate at 11 p.m. And as we do so, we do believe that you have reactions, you do have some comments. We do have sector leaders in our audience this evening that would like to respond to what has been submitted of our 5 candidates. Equally, our online audience has some burning questions, and so we'll be interacting with you in a short while. Let's start on our final bend, finance and economic development. And I'm going to start with the man who has told us that on the race to 2026, he intends to put money in what? In our pockets. Hey. Okay, fixing the economy is just one element, but one who's a financial advisory. What does Uganda need to fix the economy, with or without you as president? Nandala Mafabi.
I think you're aware. Let me start from 1986. In 1986, our budget was 777 billion, before removing the 2 zeros, 86, 87. And that budget was able to do a lot of work. You know, they did what they could. Even university students who would study for free, somebody would say it was only one university. Currently, if you remove 2 zeros, you get 7.7 billion. Right now, our budget is 72.3 trillion. That means it has gone more than 10,000 times. But what have we got? So all along this time, what has happened is what? One, wastage. We are talking about corruption. Is one of our main problems in this country. Every year they steal over 10 trillion shillings. Now when they are stealing that money, first it increases the demand on taxes. So that's why people have to pay taxes to cater for theft. In our economy, we have money in houses. It is counted in circulation, but it is not houses. But let me focus on the one of this current one. Now 72.3 trillion, yet we are estimating to collect 72.3 trillion, yet we're going to collect 37.2 trillion. It means already we have a deficit financing of 35.1 trillion. What does that mean? It means we're going to borrow. Now, that's what we go. They'll go to commercial banks. I'm sure they're going to go to money lenders like our local people are doing. But that already is a demand on cash in banks. Now, when the banks will be preferable to lend money to government than the private sector. So if the private sector does not borrow money for investment so that it can be able to generate jobs, because if I went to a bank, I want to borrow money to put up a maize mill, but because of the cost of the money, I will not go there. Eventually, that means that investment will not happen. Now, jobs will not be there because the current government will be the one going to the commercial bank to borrow. That's calling crowding credit, which is meant for the private sector. Two, if people don't have jobs, there will be no power to consume. Because if I've got a job, I will have money to buy goods and services. And when I buy goods and services, that's when I will also be paying good taxes on consumption taxes. But since I don't have capacity, I will be remaining a beggar.
Speaking of taxes, I Naloga Priscilla Regina, I am constantly paying taxes. There's more taxes that are slapped on me ever so often. In short, what I'm trying to say is that the tax base remains the same. How do we expand the tax base?
I think if you had listened to me, you would have got how you expand. Because I've said, if you have overcrowded, you have crowded the credit for the private sector, there's no investment. If there's no investment, there's no employment. Anybody who is employed pays taxes by either consuming